Is everyone able to hear me on the presentation? If you are able to hear me on the presentation, if you will please, wonderful. Rebecca, thank you. Yay, viewer 14, yay, viewer 9. All right, excellent. All right, and I'll cover what it is that I said earlier. So in my presentation, I stated that the Georgia Department of Education and the Georgia Career Information Center are teaming together to provide GCIS to all public middle schools and high schools in the state of Georgia. And I have also shared that our URL is www.gcic.peachnet.edu. Excellent. And today's topic is administration tools for returning middle school site administrators. And if you are new to using the administration tools for GCIS, I would encourage you to also attend the Administration Tools for New Middle School Site Administrators webinar, which we actually have scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday, September 22nd. To obtain an administrator tool username and password, we actually have to have a person designated in writing as the school site administrator. And the person who has the ability to do this could either be your superintendent, it could be your CTAE director, it could be your director of student support services, your principal, or anyone who has the ability to set you up as that main person. They can send to us in writing this information for you to actually receive the username and password. Once we send out the username and password, you can elect to share this information with your colleagues, or you can create what are called staff accounts, which we will actually discuss a little bit later in today's presentation. Please know that GCIC will not share this information with anyone other than those pre-approved individuals that we receive in writing. So please make sure that you reach out to your administrator so that we can receive that information and we can get you guys going as quickly as possible. So again, if everyone will please let me know if you can hear me pretty well. You can go ahead and type something in the chat bubble to say, yes, I can hear you. And I can, wonderful. And I see that someone is having difficulty signing into the actual webinar itself. You should have received an email. The URL is join.me/Georgia, written out, _career_information_center. All right, excellent. All right, now that we're all on the same page, so what I'd like to do is to start off with the most important information. Everyone is interested in knowing what are the requirements that my middle school students have to complete in order to meet the Georgia Department of Education's advisement milestones. And I want to make sure that you guys have that very information in front of you so that you can take it back and digest it and share it with your end users. So for the advisement milestones for middle school, there are 2 milestones for 6th grade. The first milestone, which actually applies to all users of GCIS, is that they have to have what is called a GCIS My Portfolio. The My Portfolio is the mechanism that allows your individual students to save information inside of that so that we can actually share that with the Department of Education, and you can also use to provide annual and ongoing career advisement. And we'll talk today how you can create portfolios for each one of your students. The second thing that your sixth grade students will have to do is that they will have to complete one of the sixth grade assessments. They will either complete the Career Cluster Inventory 80-question version or the Career Cluster Inventory 48-question version. Again, it's one or the other, but you're more than welcome to have them to do both. Seventh grade students also have two activities. Seventh graders will either complete the Reality Check Assessment or the Interest Profiler 60-question assessment. Again, this is an either-or opportunity. You're more than welcome to introduce them to both. The second element that your seventh graders will have to do, they will have to save 3 career clusters within their portfolio. So 3 of the 17 career clusters. Eighth grade students will have to explore and save at least 3 occupations. And so I just want to give you guys a tip. When you're looking inside of the students' portfolios, the occupations and the career clusters will appear in the same file. However, GCIS has been set up to where it's able to differentiate between the 2 of those entities. So there are 17 career clusters, and there are 700-plus occupations in the system. So it is able to determine which ones are which. And something that we've done this year to help to further differentiate the career clusters from the occupations is that we've added the extension career cluster to each one of those clusters. So please keep that in mind where your students are saving those components. And the last piece for the 8th graders is that they have to do a 4-year plan using our course planner individual graduation plan. So is everyone comfortable with each one of these resources? You're clear on what your students are to do at each level? Excellent. All right. All right, so let's go back over to the website. And once your students become comfortable using those particular items, you'll have an opportunity to see who has saved what within their portfolio. And we actually have reports that are earmarked specifically for you to see which students have completed their grade-specific bridge activities. So to do this, if you're looking at the main screen, you will see that you have on your administration tools bar, the very first item that you have listed is what is called Bridge. And when you hover over Bridge on your horizontal blue menu, you'll actually be able to see the items that are relevant to your completing the Bridge Law requirements. So when you're looking at this toolbar, you'll see that it's kind of divided into 3 columns, if you will. The very first column is just a description of what you'll be able to do utilizing the Bridge tab. So it gives you a quick description and tells you that you can generate your report. Your second column is what is termed Bridge Law Data Entry. And the 2 areas that you would want to familiarize yourself with are what are called student enrollment. And this is actually where you enter how many students you have within each grade level. And what is particularly important for this particular item is your 8th grade course planner verification. Now, when you are doing your 8th grade course plan, it's actually 2 steps. It's not only that the student has a 4-year plan, it's that you verify that it has been reviewed. So in our system, the report, again, is not just that they have a 4-year plan, is that they have a 4-year plan that has been reviewed. So please keep that in mind when you are generating that particular report. The third column is what is termed Bridge Law Reports. This is where you can see real-time reports on what your students have actually done for each one of the grade level opportunities. And so for today's purpose, I'll go ahead and use a 7th grade 3 career clusters report. And you'll notice that for each one of the reports, you'll see the grade level and you'll see the corresponding activity denoted to the right of the colon, so you know exactly what the students are supposed to do and when they are supposed to do it. So let's go down to 7th grade 3 career clusters. And when I click on 7th grade 3 career clusters, I'll be able to see this exact report. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, it'll say 7th grade 3 career clusters, and it'll actually show the name of my school immediately under there. I will get a readout of what this report is showing. So for this particular report, it's showing me the percent of 7th grade students who have explored and saved 3 career clusters. Immediately below that, it shows me the percent of students that have completed it. So in this case, I have 14.29 students. I show that 1 student is completed, and I show that I have 7 students who are actually enrolled in this grade level. Is everyone able to see that? If you'll just type yes in your chat window. Awesome, good. All right. All right. Directly below that, you will see a table of your students. So on here, we can verify that there are, in fact, 7 students on here. And you'll see that these students are listed by their last name. You'll also see your student's first name. You'll see their username, graduation year. So this year, 7th grade students are the same as class of 2022. And you'll see a date completed column, which is an item that we actually added this past summer. And you'll see a corresponding status code. So I'll start from the status code, then I'll talk about the date completed. So for this particular report, being that it's 3 items that are being reported, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to see who is where within that activity. So if you see the letter N next to a student in status, that means that that student has not completed the requirements of that particular activity. So for student name Centerville Ben Hill, that student has not started this activity. The next student, Chambly Clay, has a C for complete, thus indicating that this student has successfully saved 3 career clusters, and the last time that the career cluster was saved, it reports based on the last one, this activity was completed on 9/21/2016. Jumping all the way down to the last student, Cedartown Worth, you'll see P, which stands for partial. So this indicates that this student has saved 1 or 2 of the 3 career clusters. Once the student has successfully completed all 3, you'll see a C for complete, and you'll see the date completed actually populate within this table that's giving you an accurate real-time view of what these students have done. And if you go back up to the top, if my student Cedartown Worth were to go ahead and finish that activity, you'll actually see your percentage of completion automatically increase by clicking on refresh. So again, a real-time report, and that is true for all of your reports. What do you guys think about that? You can type that in your chat bubble as well. And so we know that you guys have limited time. We want to make sure that you get everything that you need as quickly as possible and make sure that it is accurate. All right, wonderful. All right. Being that this is for returning users, we also want you guys to know that there are other reports that you can run in order to support your students' information. So there are what are called, or what we term, standard reports available within the GCIS that go beyond just the milestones and what is required. So to generate these additional reports where you can actually see aggregate site information, or you even be able to run a report on a specific group, which we'll talk a little bit about later, you actually have the opportunity to hover over the Reports tab, which is the third tab from the left. And on this particular tab, you will see that it is divided into 4 columns. So the same as with the Bridge tab, your first column is actually just going to be a description of what you have available. Your second tab allows you to see what are called summary reports, which provides overall site usage data. You have what are called favorite reports, which actually look at individual saved content elements that you would see throughout the GCIS platform. And then the last item that you have within that first column are what are called stored files and sites, which can actually run reports on maybe uploaded essays that your students have added, writing assignments, presentations, or even frequently visited links by those students. Your third column includes your sorting strategies, so you can actually see which students have completed any of the sorting strategies located inside of the GCIS. You have in that same column what are called our planning tools, and this is where you can actually see individual outcomes on any one of these items. So really great information within each one of these reports. And in that last column, you can actually see which students have completed specific assessments and be able to see their individual outcomes. All right. Let's drop anchor here for a second. I'd like to show you some really neat things that you can do with this particular tab. So let's say that you support your 7th grade students, and you've assigned the interest profiler 60 questions as your 7th grade activity, and you want to see what your students' individual results are. Here's where you can see beyond the career advisement reports and truly be able to assist the student and provide them with that one-on-one assistance they might need so that they can make future plans toward what they plan to become when they grow up. So under the assessments, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down to the interest profiler 60 questions. And when I go down to interest profiler 60 questions, I can actually see information on all students that would be a part of this particular school. And what I can do is I can actually filter this report so that it looks specifically at my 7th grade students. So to filter this type of report to make it work for me, what I can do is I can go up to the upper right-hand corner and click on what is called Report Settings. And under the Report Settings mechanism, I have an opportunity to select the group or graduation year in which I'd like to run a report. So if I happen to have had groups created, I can run a report on them. I can run a report on a specific graduation year, and in this case, we are going to do just that. We're going to select Class of 2022, or I could set this so that it will run a report on my entire site, so all of my students that are there. I can select a date range in which I'd like for this report to cover. So for today's purposes, I'm going to select the beginning as July 1, 2006. So I can actually type directly into that table, or I can use the table that appears, and then it will always show today's date as your ending date. And I'm going to click on Apply Settings. So now this report has been calibrated for graduation year 2022. And if you look at the table below, it's only going to show me with portfolios or records between July 1st and today's date. And each subsequent report that I run while I'm in the session will maintain those exact same calibrations. Now I'm going to go to the table and I'm going to click on Interest Profiler 60 Questions. And I'm going to leave all of these refinements alone. I'm going to click on Generate Report. And it's just going to show me my 7th grade students who have had any interaction with the interest profiler. So if I see N, that means no progress. If I see C for complete, I can actually view what those students' outcomes are. And I can see that when this student did the interest profiler, that this student's top areas were investigative and conventional. This student completed this activity on September 21st. And I would be able to print this information out, use it to provide one-on-one guidance with my students. Now, again, being that you guys are returning users, I'm not sure how many of you on the line have asked me a particular question, but I'm always happy to respond to this particular question. Several of you are completing both Bridge Law and CCRPI. And if you are a returning user and you've been using GCIS for several years, some of you have contacted me in reference to generating a report that will cover multiple years. For the CCRPI, one of the benchmarks is how many of your students by the end of 8th grade have completed at least 2 assessments. With GCIS, you can actually find that information out using those very same settings that I just did for you. So what you could theoretically do, let's say that you were working with your 8th grade students. And I'm going to go back and recalibrate my report for 8th grade. So I'm going to go up to Report Settings, and I'm going to make this for my class of 2021. So let's count backwards. So if your students are 8th graders this year, they'll be 8th graders for the year 2016-2017. They would have been a 7th grader for 15-16. And they would have been a 6th grader for 14-15. So if you wanted to find out if those students in fact had completed the interest profiler 60 questions, you could actually do a reverse report where you go back to July 1st of 2014. And if I had students in there, when I click Apply Settings, it would show you all of the students who have completed that particular element during the last 3 years. How cool is that? So when you go to your SIS and you say, yes, this student has been able to complete these assessments within GCIS during the last 3 years, you can say confidently, emphatically, yes, because you have the data to back up exactly what it is that you've said. I have a question. Can newly enrolled students look up their account even if it was made at the previous school in Georgia? If a student transfers their portfolio to your school and you have GCIS and they were using GCIS previously, yes, you will be able to see everything that's in that portfolio because it comes as a bundle. Everything that is associated with that student's portfolio moves forward with them. So again, make sure that you're transferring them to the school so that you'll be able to see what they have done. So, excellent report. And so you have several ways that you can do that. All right, somebody has a very good question. I'm actually going to get to that. How do we transfer students to new schools? You are reading my mind. That's a part of my presentation. I'll make sure that we get to that before we leave today. So before we can actually transfer portfolios, we need to talk about how to make portfolios for your students. As a GCIS Site Administrator, you have two ways that you can create a student's portfolio. So you can either add them individually or you can upload them en masse. So both of those operations occur when you hover over the Portfolios and Groups tab. It's the fourth one that's on your horizontal menu bar. And if you scroll down, and we're going to look in the second column, you will see that there is a header called Add Portfolios. And the first way that you can add a portfolio simply is to click on Add One. I have a great question. The report that I just ran, does the exported document show a list of everything the student has completed? That particular report would only show for just that one specific element. It'll actually export it to an Excel spreadsheet. What you can actually do is, for the next one, you can actually run that next report and put it into the same Excel spreadsheet and be able to kind of collapse your information. If you would give me a call, I can show you how to make that a pretty report so you can show everything. So when you are adding an individual portfolio, you'll have a series of text boxes in which you can enter your students' information. So first you would have the required elements, which are denoted by two red asterisks. You'll have to set up a username for your student. When you set usernames for GCIS, they must contain a minimum of 6 characters, and they have to be unique in the entire state. The more characters that you put together, the less likely that it is to have been taken by someone else. And I would like to share that if you include a student identifier, that's also helpful as well. So right now, a popular username that I keep hearing about is actually using the last name plus the student lunch number. So I'm going to type in, all right. So student last name followed by lunch number. Now, a tip for passwords. Inside of GCIS, the password must contain 8 characters. There must be at least 1 capital letter, 1 lowercase letter, and a number. Just as a couple of tips, you can set the same password for all of your students if you wish to. Popular passwords that I keep hearing from end users are actually using the physical word password1. Another one that I hear about frequently is using the last name and the 6-digit birthday. And then I also have some that are using graduation year. So whatever you feel that your students will remember easily, I definitely encourage you to use that information. Next thing that is important will be the student's first name, because we want to make sure that we know who you are. And then the next item that is not required, but I do highly recommend, is that you include the graduation year, because this is how we align the students to their individual advisement reports. And I would simply click on Add. And so now that student has a portfolio inside of the system. Now let me share something with you. When you add an individual portfolio, and you can see my student, Kiana Gordon, right there. When you add a portfolio for an individual student, you are only setting a temporary password. Okay? Again, when you add an individual portfolio, you are only setting a temporary password. So my tip here is, if you want all of your students to maintain a set password, let's say that you want all students to have password 2 as their official password, I would type something in that I don't want it to be. So let's say that I don't want it to be password 1 as the final. When the student initially logs in with their username and password, password 1, it will ask them to change it to their permanent password, which in this case is password 2. And then they can continue using their username and password 2 going forward. Does that make sense to everyone? If you'll type yes in your chat window. So choose something that you don't want as the permanent password when you set the temporary password, then make them change it to what you do want it to be. Can we set the password as the same for all kids until they change it? Yes. So when you set a password, you're setting it to what you want it to be. The student still has an opportunity to elect to change it. Now, the second way that you can add portfolios is what is called upload portfolios. And so when we upload portfolios, you have an opportunity to set the password that the student does not necessarily have to change. And this is where you're going to set it to what you would desire it to be. So when I go back up to the tab, Portfolios and Groups, I'm going to go to the second option under Add Portfolios, which is Upload Several Portfolios. And when I click on Upload Several Portfolios, the first thing that you will want to do is to click on what is called Portfolio Upload Template. And you will see that the item will appear, and I'm using Chrome right now, so it'll appear in the bottom left-hand corner. And I'm just going to click on this Excel spreadsheet to open it. Can everyone see the Excel spreadsheet? If you'll go ahead and type yes if you can. Awesome, awesome. And so on this Excel spreadsheet, you will see that you have headers already enabled at the top. So on this particular element, you'll notice that columns A, B, C, and D are in green. The green elements are required for you to create and upload portfolios. The yellow elements are optional. Now, one that I'm going to tell you to definitely do, even though it says optional, you need that graduation year. Because again, remember, that's how we align them to their individual report. I would encourage you, when you are uploading portfolios for your students, please make sure that you're pulling the data from your school's SIS. Because when you download information from the SIS, you'll know that it's the official data. So you can actually copy information from the spreadsheet or whatever mechanism that they have and place that into the spreadsheet so that you can make sure that you are reducing the opportunity for human error. We don't want to cross up a student's name with a different student ID. So by using that information from the SIS, this will reduce the likelihood of misaligning that student's information. So I'm going to go ahead and create a username for this student, and I have to type this time. All right, so I'm going to type in and for my password, again, this is where I would set a permanent password or what I would like for that to be. All right, and you'll notice that my password has a capital letter, lowercase letter, and a number. All right, and so I would simply save this information somewhere on my desktop. And I can elect to leave it being called batch template, or I could change the name. For today's purposes, I'll go ahead and just leave it as the same. I would click Save, and I would close it out. So now this brings me back to my desktop. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Choose File. And if you're using either IE or Firefox, it will actually say Browse. So I'm going to click Choose File, and I'm going to go to my desktop. I see my batch template, and you'll see the name of my file will appear on my screen. And what I can do at this point is I can click what is called Trial Run, because I want to see if this is actually going to upload for me. And when I click on Trial Run, I'm then going to click on Upload Portfolios. And what the trial run will do is it will show me if I have any errors in my spreadsheet. If I see none, that indicates that that username has not been taken. That also indicates that my password meets the criteria, and there is no reason why I would not be able to upload this information. If you were to have a spreadsheet that had at least one code, even if you had 1,000 rows of information, that one code would prevent you from uploading any of those items. And so if you ever wanted to see the status code, you have a PDF immediately above the table, and it will tell you what each one of those codes would represent. Now that we know that we have a clean spreadsheet, I'm going to uncheck Trial Run. I'm going to click Choose File again. I'm going to grab my file. I will click Upload Portfolios, and you will see the word Add. And this now indicates that this student can log in with this username and that password and begin with her career development usage. How does that sound to you guys? All right, great, great, great. All right. Now, that same element is the password you just uploaded a permanent one. Permanent is kind of a gray term. It's as permanent can get. When the student logs in with that username and password, it will not make them change it at that time. But that student can change it at some point. And thank you, viewer 22. That's actually very helpful. If you were to, let's say that you set up usernames and passwords and you had exactly what you wanted that username and password to be, and throughout the year, students start changing their password. Or let's say that you inherit students from the elementary schools, and the elementary schools each use something different, and you want to align everybody to the same format. You actually have the opportunity to re-upload all of their portfolios and set all of the passwords to exactly what it is that you want it to be. So whereas it is not permanent in terms of you can never change it, it will put everybody on the same wavelength, if you will. And so if you ever wanted to just kind of start over, get everybody together and make sure they're on the same page, what you would do is you would hover over Portfolios and Groups, and from here you would click on Reset Passwords for Multiple Users. And so on here, what you would do to reset all of these students' portfolio passwords is that you can select just the students that you want by clicking on the box to the left of their name, or click the actual word select, and it's going to select all my students. I will go up to what says Export for Upload. And it'll be another spreadsheet. And this is going to show me all my current students. So let's say that Centerville had password 1 and Americus had Bulldogs 2562, whatever it is that they have. I can go in and say, no, everyone's password should be password 1. I would save this spreadsheet on my desktop. I would close it out. I would then return to my desktop, and at this point, I will go back up to Portfolios and Groups. And once I go to Portfolios and Groups, I'm going to click on Reset Password under the Manage Active Portfolios. And so at this point, I apologize, I'm going to go back to Reset Passwords for multiple users. And I'm going to go to Upload Several Portfolios. Here we go. We're going to click on Choose File. I found my last spreadsheet. And I know that there's no changes on this one that I didn't intend. So I'm going to click on Upload Portfolios. You'll see it says Updated. And you'll see the new password. So now, all of my students are on the same wavelength. I can see their username, and I've just set the password as password 1. When I go into the classroom, I'll know that everyone is on the same page. How does that sound for you guys? Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, you have several elements that you can use to navigate through the system. So that is how you can reset portfolios with quote-unquote permanent passwords. Now, someone asked me earlier about transferring students to another school. That is a very great question, as that is something that will occur every year. And you can transfer students or promote them to the next school if you know where they are going. So as a middle school, some of you may feed into multiple high schools, and you may already have an idea of where the students are going. And so to do this, you will actually need to have access of the new school's GCIS username and password. Not their administration tools, but their GCIS username and password. So to accomplish this function, what we're going to do is we're going to hover over Portfolios and Groups, and you'll notice that this will be your home for a lot of the features, the Portfolios and Groups tab, because it has a lot of management mechanisms on here. So on the Portfolios and Groups, I am going to go over to the third column, and I'm going to click on Transfer to another site. Now, when I click on Transfer to another site, I can actually select exactly who is going to be transferred. So let's say that all of my students, I have 23 of them, let's say that the first 5 students are going to a specific school. I would click on the check marks next to each one of those students, and at the top, I'll click on Transfer Selected Portfolios. And it will show me at the bottom a table of the students in which I'm getting ready to transfer. I will need to interact with that school, the new school, to find out what is your school's username and password. And so when I enter that information, I will review my list because you want to make sure that you're transferring the exact students that you intend. And I would simply click on Continue, and it will say Accounts Transferred to and the name of the new school. How easy is that? So you will never have students that are just floating around in outer space. They will always be attached to a school until you move them forward. Let's say that you don't know where the students are going, but you want to make sure that you have clean data that just represents who your current students are. You actually have an opportunity to archive students. So let's say again, it's the new school year. You still have ninth graders at your school, but you don't want them to appear in your list of portfolios. You have an opportunity to go up to your Portfolios and Groups tab, and in our system, we term the archiving process hiding portfolios. So when I click on Hide Portfolios, I have an opportunity to select the students who I wish to hide. And I would then click on Hide Selected Portfolios, and those students will no longer appear on my active roster. Now, when we hide portfolios, students will still have an opportunity to use those particular elements. So it does not bar them from actually engaging in career development with those with GCIS in the component. Let's say that you hit a student who is transient and they are now back at your school. You can actually unhide that very same student. So you would go back up to the Portfolios and Groups, and there's a section called Manage Hidden and Deleted Portfolios. You will click on View Hidden Portfolios, and you'll see here are the students. So let's say that Sandy Springs Jasper is back at my school, and I want to see this student within my active roster. I would click on the X to the left of the name, click on Hide Selected Portfolio, and now that student will appear in my active roster. So again, a lot of really cool management opportunities within the GCIS component that you can use, again, to make sure that you're providing ongoing career advisement. Now, I've received a couple of questions in reference to what are called staff accounts. When we set up what are called site coordinators, we only provide one username and password for that administrator. And as I shared earlier, you'll have an opportunity to share that with others, or you can create what are called staff accounts, which would provide other individuals their own access point into the administration tools. This is a good idea if you have multiple counselors supporting your student body. Staff accounts are also great opportunities if you have individuals, let's say at the high school, that have an interest in the students at the middle school. It's also great if you have temporary employees that you want to have to access the administration tools, but not necessarily use your main account. And so if you would like to create what are called staff accounts, you would simply go over to the tab called Other Accounts, and there is a column called Manage Staff Accounts. You would simply click on Add New Staff Account. You would enter that person's username, and you get to elect what that is, a password, first name, last name, and an email address, and you can send that staff account information to that individual. And the staff account holder will actually maintain pretty much 85% of the rights that you as a site coordinator have. The only things that that person would not be able to do is they would not be able to see other staff account holders' information, and they would not be able to change a course planner option. Only you, as the main site coordinator, would have an opportunity to do exactly that. And so there are a whole host of different resources that you can use in order to manage your students' information as you're navigating throughout the GCIS administration tools. And of course, with today's session, it only covers a portion of what you have, but I promise you, as equally easy as the items that we went through today, I promise you the other elements follow the same paradigm. And so definitely feel free to get your feet wet as you're navigating through the system, and let us know at GCIC how we can assist you in navigating through the components. We are here to support you at any time, and you're more than welcome to reach us at GCIS Coordinator at GSU, and we will get back to you promptly. Several of the elements that we are covering today, you will have an opportunity to receive handouts on how to navigate through, and we also have various videos buried within the section as well. So we will definitely share more information with you, and as I stated, today's presentation is recorded. Please expect some additional recordings to appear on our YouTube page as well to help you again successfully implement and navigate the administration tools. I'm going to go ahead and suspend recording.